Welcome back to our channel Rare Coins Hub. In today's video, we're going to explore something really interesting and exciting. So, if you want to find out what you'll learn by staying with us till the end, make sure to watch the whole video. Stay with us, because whatever you might miss could be really important. Let's get started. If you've ever held a penny in your hand, you probably haven't given it much thought beyond its value, 1 cent, a small piece of currency. However, what if I told you that one particular penny from 1976 could be worth thousands of dollars today? I know, it sounds unbelievable. But stick with me, because we're about to dive into the fascinating story of the 1976 USA 1-cent penny, its history, design, minting details, how it became so valuable, and why it's a coveted piece for collectors. Let's take a closer look at why the 1976 penny is much more than just a simple coin. In 1976, the United States was celebrating a monumental occasion, the nation's bicentennial. The American Revolution had happened 200 years earlier, and it was time for the country to reflect on its independence, its values, and its journey. The bicentennial celebrations were in full swing, with events, parades, and commemorations taking place all across the country. The U.S. Mint even introduced a special bicentennial coin program, creating limited edition versions of the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coin. However, not every coin in circulation that year received this special treatment. The 1-cent penny was largely overlooked during the celebrations. It wasn't until later that collectors began to realize something extraordinary about the 1976 penny, something that set it apart from others. To understand why the 1976 penny became so notable, let's start with its design. The penny, of course, features the likeness of Abraham Lincoln, a design that had been in use since 1909. The image was the work of sculptor Victor David Brenner, and it was created to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It's still one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. On the reverse side of the coin, there's a depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. This design had been in use since 1959, celebrating the iconic structure in Washington, D.C., which was dedicated to Lincoln's legacy. It was a design that was well known to coin collectors, and it had been part of American currency for over a decade by the time 1976 rolled around. However, when you look closely at the 1976 penny, you'll notice something that sets it apart from the pennies that came before it. In 1976, the U.S. Mint issued a series of proof sets and special editions to mark the bicentennial. And although the penny didn't receive a new design for this occasion, the minting process was anything but ordinary. It was the perfect storm of timing and unique circumstances that made the 1976 penny special. The minting process in 1976 was impacted by several factors. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce more coins than ever before due to the bicentennial celebrations, which caused some variations in the way coins were struck. These variations would later make certain 1976 pennies particularly valuable to collectors. To understand why, we need to look at the actual materials used to strike the 1976 pennies. Throughout the 1970s, the penny was primarily made of a copper-plated zinc composition. However, there were a few exceptions to this, particularly in the way certain coins were produced for special proof sets and mint errors. And it was in this year, 1976, that some pennies were produced with a rare and highly sought-after minting error. Coin collectors and enthusiasts started to notice something strange about certain 1976 pennies. They were made with a specific kind of error that made them stand out. These coins featured a double die, a type of error in which the die used to strike the design was misaligned, causing the image to appear slightly doubled on the coin. The most famous of these is the 1976 double die penny, which has become one of the most valuable and rare pennies in American numismatic history. At first glance, these errors might seem minor. After all, they're just slight variations in the design. Who would have guessed that a small, doubled image of Lincoln's face would make the coin worth so much? But for collectors, these kinds of minting errors are incredibly important. Coin collectors and numismatists seek out such rare variations because they represent a moment of imperfection in the otherwise meticulous process of coin production. And when you're dealing with a coin that was struck at a time of significant historical importance, like the bicentennial of the United States, the value skyrockets. So, how do you spot the 1976 double-die penny? Well, it's not always obvious, and many people miss it when they first examine their coins. The most noticeable feature is the doubling of the design, especially on Lincoln's hair, the date, and the inscriptions around the edge of the coin. The doubling effect can be subtle, but if you have a keen eye, you'll be able to spot it. Now, let's talk about the collectors who are eager to get their hands on these unique coins. Over the years, the 1976 double-die penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in the world of numismatics. Coin collectors and investors alike have been on the lookout for these rarities, hoping to find a penny that could be worth a fortune. And as with any rare item, the demand for the 1976 double-die penny has only increased as time has passed. So, how much is a 1976 double-die penny worth? Well, let's get to the part you've been waiting for, the big reveal. As of today, a 1976 double-die penny in excellent condition can sell for anywhere from a few $100s to several thousand, depending on its quality. However, in recent years, some of these coins have sold for much more, upwards of $123,000. That's right, $123,000 for a single penny, but why is it so valuable? First, it's all about rarity. There were only a limited number of these error pennies produced, and even fewer have survived in pristine condition. Second, it's the historical significance of the coin. 1976 marked the bicentennial of the United States, and owning a piece of that history makes it incredibly appealing to collectors. Finally, the collector community is always on the lookout for rare and unique coins, and the 1976 double-die penny checks all the boxes: rarity, historical importance, and a fascinating minting error. So, if you're ever rummaging through a jar of old pennies, take a moment to check the date on your 1976 coins. If you happen to come across one with a double die, you might just be holding onto a piece of American history that's worth far more than its 1-cent value. In fact, you could be holding onto a coin worth over $100,000. It's a perfect example of how something as simple as a penny, something many people overlook in their everyday lives, can have a story to tell, a rich history behind it, and a value far beyond what you'd expect. The 1976 USA 1-cent penny isn't just a coin. It's a rare, valuable piece of history, waiting to be discovered. As we wrap up this story, I hope you're a little more inspired to take a closer look at the coins in your pocket, because you never know what treasures might be hidden there. And who knows, maybe that old penny you've been carrying around for years will be worth more than you ever imagined. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep an eye on your pocket change. You never know when you might strike gold, or in this case, a penny worth $123,000. The top 2. Imagine you're holding a single penny, something that many people wouldn't give a second thought to. It's small, copper-colored, and usually tucked away in the bottom of your pocket or the corners of your purse. But what if I told you that a seemingly ordinary 1975 penny could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today? Yes, you heard that right. A coin that's worth just 1 cent could now be worth a staggering $126,000. Intrigued? Well, stick around, because we're about to dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1975 US 1-cent penny. From its historical context to the minting process, and, of course, the incredible value it commands today, we'll cover it all. The 1975 penny is not just another coin in circulation, it represents a snapshot of a particular moment in American history. To understand why this penny is so valuable, we need to go back in time. It's 1975, and the United States is going through a transitional period in its coinage. The U.S. Mint had been working on several changes to the design and composition of its coins, and 1975 would mark a significant year for pennies, which had been in circulation for over a century by this point. The penny, of course, is one of the most iconic coins in American currency. For many of us, it's the first coin we ever hold in our hands. It features the image of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most revered figures in U.S. history, ever since the design was introduced in 1909. The portrait of Lincoln, created by the sculptor Victor David Brenner, became one of the most recognizable images in the history of coinage, and it still graces the obverse, front, of the penny to this day. On the reverse, back, of the penny, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which was designed by Frank Gasparo and first appeared on the coin in 1959. This design celebrated the great structure in Washington, D.C., that honors Lincoln's legacy. By 1975, the penny was mostly made of copper, a material that would soon become the subject of a very interesting controversy. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's talk about the unique circumstances surrounding the 1975 penny's design and minting. The U.S. Mint was under pressure during the 1970s, primarily because of rising costs and a shortage of the copper needed to produce pennies. The cost of minting pennies had been increasing due to inflation, and the mint was starting to realize that the copper needed to produce the coin was more expensive than the coin's face value. It was a strange paradox. The cost of producing pennies was rising, while the value of the penny itself was still just 1 cent. To combat this problem, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with alternative materials for the penny's composition, and this would become an important aspect of the penny's story in the years to come. But in 1975, the issue wasn't yet solved. The coin still used a copper core, but they were struck in large quantities to meet the demands of the growing U.S. economy. At this point, the minting process was relatively straightforward, but there were still plenty of opportunities for errors to occur, which is exactly what happened with the 1975 pennies. One of the most significant reasons the 1975 penny stands out today is because of a minting error that occurred during production. This particular error involved a double die mistake, which is a very specific type of error that occurs when a coin is struck more than once, causing the design to appear doubled. In this case, the doubling was most noticeable on the date and on the inscriptions around the coin. While double die errors aren't particularly uncommon, some are far rarer than others, and the 1975 penny with the double die error is particularly valuable. So, how does a double die error happen? Essentially, it occurs during the process where the dies that stamp the coin's design onto the blank planchet, the metal disc that becomes the coin, are not perfectly aligned. When this misalignment happens, it creates a doubled image. The design becomes shifted, and certain parts of the coin look as though they were struck twice, giving the impression of a shadowy, double effect. The double die error is one of the most sought-after mistakes among coin collectors because it signifies a rare anomaly in the minting process. To the untrained eye, the 1975 double die penny might seem like any other penny, but to a dedicated coin collector, it's a goldmine. Some of these coins were spotted early on by collectors, and it didn't take long for them to realize the significance of this rare error. What sets the 1975 double die penny apart from other errors, however, is the level of detail in the doubling. The 1975 penny is one of the more pronounced examples of this minting anomaly, and the doubled features are especially visible in the numbers of the date, as well as in the word liberty and in God we trust. The discovery of the 1975 double die penny sent shockwaves through the world of numismatics, and people began to hunt for these elusive coins. For years, collectors sought after these pennies in hopes of finding one in good condition, but because they were produced in large quantities and circulated widely, finding one in top-tier condition became increasingly difficult. Now that we've explored the history and the error that makes the 1975 penny so special, let's talk about its collector appeal. As with any rare coin, the value of a 1975 penny depends on several factors, the most important of which is its condition. The better the condition of the coin, the more valuable it is. Collectors use a grading system to assess the quality of coins, with categories ranging from poor to mint state and proof. A 1975 penny in near-perfect condition can command a much higher price than one that's worn down from years of circulation. The 1975 double-die penny is considered one of the most valuable coins in U.S. numismatics, particularly because of its rarity and the intriguing minting error. In recent years, the prices of these coins have steadily increased, as more and more collectors realize the potential of owning a piece of history. Some collectors have been able to secure a 1975 double-die penny for just a few $100s, but others have paid tens of thousands for one in exceptional condition. The most valuable 1975 pennies have sold for even higher prices, breaking records at auctions.so. How much is a 1975 penny worth today? The short answer is, it varies. If you have a 1975 double-die penny in good condition, you're probably looking at a value anywhere between $500 and $5,000. However, a flawless coin in top condition could fetch much more. In fact, the most prized specimens have sold for as much as $126,000. Yes, you read that correctly, $126,000 for a penny. This particular penny, with its double-die error and impeccable condition, is considered one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world. It's a mind-boggling amount of money for a coin that, at face value, is only worth 1 cent. But the rarity of the 1975 double-die penny, combined with its historical significance and the demand from collectors, has made it an incredibly valuable piece of American numismatic history. If you happen to find one of these rare pennies in your pocket change, you could very well be holding on to a small fortune. As we wrap up this incredible journey through the story of the 1975 penny, we can't help but marvel at how such an ordinary coin can be transformed into something extraordinary. A simple error in the minting process, combined with a few decades of time and the passion of collectors, has turned the 1975 double-die penny into a treasure worth $126,000. So, the next time you're going through your spare change, take a moment to look closely at that penny. It might just be worth far more than you ever imagined. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating adventure into the world of coin collecting. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. And remember, in the world of numismatics, you never know when a simple coin might turn into a priceless treasure. Keep your eyes open, and who knows, you could be holding the next big find. The top 3. Let's take a moment to reflect on something you probably don't think twice about when you see it: a penny. A coin that's almost too common, too small, too ordinary to be anything special. But what if I told you that one specific penny, an unassuming, ordinary 1983 penny, could be worth up to $112,000 today? Yes, you heard that right. A coin that, at face value, is worth 1 cent, could be worth over $100,000. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But the story behind this penny is as extraordinary as its price tag, and it's time to uncover exactly how it became such a sought-after collector's item. It's 1983, and the United States is in the midst of an interesting transition when it comes to its coinage. The penny, one of the longest-standing coins in American history, was changing in subtle, yet significant ways. To understand the value of the 1983 penny, we need to step back into the history of U.S. currency, particularly the evolution of the penny itself. The penny, first introduced in 1793, has undergone many changes throughout the years. But in the early 20th century, one element remained constant: the image of Abraham Lincoln. This design, created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, was introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Brenner's portrait of Lincoln has graced the face of the penny ever since. And while Lincoln's portrait remained unchanged, the reverse side of the penny would undergo periodic modifications. Most notably, In 1959, the reverse design was changed from a simple wreath to the iconic Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. This design, with its portrayal of the grand memorial dedicated to Lincoln in Washington, D.C., would remain in place until 2009, when the penny received a new reverse design to commemorate Lincoln's life. But let's fast forward to 1983. The U.S. Mint had been struggling with rising production costs for coins, particularly the penny. The problem was simple: it cost more to make a penny than the coin was worth. This phenomenon, known as coinage inefficiency, was something the mint had been dealing with for decades. By 1982, the cost of copper, the primary metal used in the penny, had risen dramatically, putting further pressure on the mint to find a solution. In 1982, the mint made a bold decision. Instead of continuing to strike pennies entirely out of copper, the mint began experimenting with a new composition for the penny, one that was cheaper to produce. The new penny would still retain the iconic copper color, but it would be made primarily from zinc, with only a thin copper plating on the outside. This new composition, which consisted of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, was far more cost-effective. And it was in 1983 that the new zinc-based pennies began to be minted, while the copper-based pennies continued to circulate alongside them. This change in composition would become the key to the 1983 pennies story, because, as fate would have it, not all of the pennies minted in 1983 were made from this new zinc composition. Some pennies were struck in the old copper composition by mistake. This was due to an error in the transition period, where some of the copper planchets, blank, unstruck coins, were accidentally left in the hopper and were used to produce the 1983 pennies. These coins are now known as the 1983 copper penny, and they are extremely rare, highly coveted by collectors, and can fetch a small fortune. Now, you might be wondering how something as seemingly minor as a mistake in composition could make a penny worth so much. The answer lies in the rarity of the error. The copper planchets were supposed to be phased out in favor of the zinc-based planchets, so only a limited number of copper pennies were struck in 1983. Collectors and coin enthusiasts began to realize that these copper pennies were not only a rarity, but also a key piece of U.S. numismatic history. Their value began to climb as more people sought to get their hands on these rare coins. However, the problem was that these copper pennies were so rare that most of them were never even noticed by the public. They had been distributed alongside the more common zinc pennies, and few people knew to look for them. It wasn't until years later that the true value of the 1983 copper penny was discovered. And while some were lucky enough to find one of these rare coins early on, others would have to wait until the coin's true value became widely known. Over time, collectors began to seek out 1983 pennies, checking their coins carefully to see if they contained the rarer copper composition. But finding one of these pennies in excellent condition, particularly one that had not been damaged or worn down after years of circulation, became increasingly difficult. And here's where things get really interesting. The 1983 copper penny is one of the most valuable error coins in U.S. history. Because only a small number of these pennies were minted by mistake, they are exceedingly rare. But rarity alone doesn't explain why these pennies have commanded such high prices on the market. There's something about the 1983 copper penny that makes it incredibly special to collectors: its historical significance, its role in the transition of U.S. coinage, and the fact that it represents a mistake in the minting process that many people never even knew existed. The 1983 copper penny has become a symbol of the unpredictability and excitement of coin collecting. For many collectors, it's a holy grail, a rare piece of U.S. numismatic history that's highly sought after and almost impossible to find in top condition. It's also a coin that represents a moment in time, a specific year in which U.S. coinage was undergoing a significant change, and it's this combination of rarity and history that gives the 1983 copper penny its incredible value. Now, let's talk about how much the 1983 copper penny is worth. As you can probably imagine, the value of these rare coins varies depending on a number of factors. The most important factor is the condition of the coin. Coins in better condition, particularly those that have been well preserved and are free from heavy wear, are worth significantly more. In fact, some 1983 copper pennies in near mint or mint condition have sold for as much as $112,000. That's right, $112,000 for a single penny. This is what makes the 1983 copper penny one of the most valuable era coins in the world. Why is the coin worth such a staggering amount? First, it's because of its extreme rarity. Only a small number of these copper pennies were accidentally minted in 1983, and of those, only a few remain in pristine condition. Second, the 1983 copper penny is a part of a fascinating chapter in U.S. numismatic history. It represents the end of the copper era for pennies, and its unique composition makes it an important piece of the story of U.S. coinage. Finally, the high value can be attributed to the passionate community of coin collectors who covet these rare coins and are willing to pay top dollar for them. If you happen to have one of these elusive 1983 copper pennies in your possession, you could be holding on to a small fortune. But, of course, finding one isn't easy. Because these coins were struck in error and circulated widely, they are incredibly difficult to spot. Even if you come across a 1983 penny, it may be difficult to tell whether it's the rare copper version or the more common zinc version. The key to determining if you have one of these rare copper pennies is to weigh it. The copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. If you have a penny that weighs 3.11 grams, congratulations, you could be holding a piece of history worth tens of thousands of dollars. To wrap things up, the 1983 US penny is more than just a coin, it's a rare and valuable treasure that could be hiding in plain sight. Whether it's the result of a historical mistake, the rare copper composition, or its place in the story of US coinage, the 1983 copper penny has become one of the most sought-after items in the world of coin collecting. So, next time you come across a penny, take a closer look. You never know, it could be worth far more than just 1 cent. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the fascinating world of the 1983 copper penny. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And remember, in the world of coins, you never know when you might stumble upon a small fortune. The top 4. When you reach into your pocket and pull out a penny, you probably don't think much of it. After all, it's just a 1-cent coin, a small, copper-colored token of currency that many of us overlook in our daily lives. But what if I told you that one seemingly ordinary penny from 1985 could be worth more than $100,000 today? Yes, you heard that right, a 1985 US penny, something you've probably seen thousands of times, could potentially fetch up to $104,000 at auction. It sounds unbelievable, but this penny has quite the story to tell, and today we're going to dive deep into it. So, buckle up as we explore the fascinating journey of the 1985 USA 1-cent penny, the history behind it, the minting details, the errors that make it so valuable, and, of course, the shocking revelation of its true worth. Let's start with some background. The year is 1985. Ronald Reagan is serving as President of the United States, and the country is experiencing a period of economic recovery. The U.S. economy is growing steadily after the recession of the early 1980s, and there's optimism in the air. Meanwhile, in the world of U.S. coinage, the humble penny is going through its own period of transition. While pennies had been in circulation since the late 18th century, their design had remained relatively unchanged for decades. The penny had featured the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the front, since 1909. Sculptor Victor David Brenner's image of Lincoln, which commemorated the centennial of his birth, quickly became a symbol of American coinage. For much of the 20th century, the reverse of the penny showed a simple wheat stalk design, which was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial in 1959, marking a new era for the penny, one that celebrated the Great Memorial in Washington, D.C., dedicated to honoring the nation's 16th president. But in 1985, the U.S. Mint continued its work behind the scenes, preparing for another era in U.S. coinage. One of the most important changes came in the composition of the penny. For decades, pennies were made of copper, but rising metal prices in the 1970s and 1980s created challenges for the mint. By the time 1982 rolled around, the cost of producing pennies exceeded their face value due to the price of copper, forcing the mint to make a pivotal decision. The solution was to change the composition of the penny. Instead of being made entirely of copper, the penny would now be composed of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper as a thin plating over the zinc core. This change was designed to reduce the cost of producing the penny while still maintaining its familiar appearance. The penny struck in 1985 was one of these new, zinc-based coins, and it was part of a larger effort by the mint to keep production costs down while continuing to meet the nation's need for small denomination coins. The penny in 1985 was still a very recognizable coin to Americans, featuring the same Abraham Lincoln portrait by Brenner and the Lincoln Memorial reverse designed by Frank Gasparo. While the penny had undergone a significant change in composition, the design remained largely the same, until a small, yet crucial error occurred. As with any large-scale minting process, errors were bound to happen, and one specific mistake from 1985 would make certain pennies from that year stand out from the rest. That's right, the 1985 penny is not just any old penny. There's a rare and valuable variant of this coin that has caught the attention of collectors worldwide. You see, the U.S. Mint was still adjusting to the new zinc planchets in 1985, and this period of transition would lead to one of the most important error coins in U.S. history, the 1985 doubled die penny. But what exactly is a doubled die, and how does it affect the value of a coin? A double die error occurs when the die used to stamp the design onto a coin is misaligned, causing the design to appear twice, or doubled. This means that the details on the coin, such as the date, inscriptions, and even parts of Lincoln's portrait, may appear to be doubled. These errors happen during the minting process when the die used to strike the coin gets struck multiple times. In most cases, these types of errors go unnoticed by the mint, and the coins are released into circulation. The 1985 double die penny is particularly special because of how pronounced the error is. Unlike some other double die errors that are difficult to detect, the doubling on the 1985 penny is noticeable even to the untrained eye. The most prominent doubling can be seen in the date, 1985, with the numbers appearing slightly shifted. The word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," also show visible doubling, making this coin a clear example of a double die error. For collectors, this makes the 1985 doubled die penny highly desirable. It's an example of a rare mistake in the production of a coin, and it represents a fascinating part of U.S. minting history. But let's talk about why this particular coin has become so valuable. The key to understanding the 1985 double die penny's value is rarity. As we know, mistakes during the minting process aren't common, and this double die error is no exception. Only a small number of these 1985 double die pennies were produced before the mint corrected the mistake. While the exact number of these error coins is unknown, estimates suggest that fewer than 20 examples of the 1985 double die penny exist in uncirculated, high-quality condition. This rarity, coupled with the coin's historical significance, is what has made it such a sought-after piece for collectors. As with any rare coin, the value of the 1985 double die penny depends largely on its condition. Coin collectors use a grading system to assess the quality of a coin, with categories ranging from poor to mint state and proof. A coin that has been well preserved, with minimal wear and tear, will always fetch a higher price than one that has been heavily circulated. And when it comes to the 1985 double die penny, condition is everything. A 1985 double die penny that is in mint condition, meaning it has been well preserved and shows little to no signs of wear, can command a significant premium over its face value. But it's the coins in near-perfect condition that truly capture the attention of collectors and investors. In fact, the highest quality 1985 double-die pennies have been sold for staggering amounts. Some of the finest examples of this rare error coin have fetched prices upwards of $104,000. That's right, $104,000 for a single penny. To put that in perspective, that's more than 100,000 times the coin's original value. So why is this penny worth so much? Beyond its rarity and the intriguing story of how it came to be, it's the collector demand for these error coins that drives their value. As coin collecting becomes more popular, rare and unique pieces like the 1985 double-die penny are constantly in demand. The thrill of finding a coin that contains a mistake during production makes it all the more valuable. Collectors know that securing one of these coins means owning a piece of history, and in the case of the 1985 double-die penny, it means holding onto a coin that is extremely difficult to find. Now, let's talk about how you can spot a 1985 double-die penny. The key to identifying this rare error coin is to look closely at the date, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." If you notice any doubling, or if the numbers in the date appear to be shifted or blurred, then you may have one of these highly valuable pennies in your hands. The doubling effect is most visible on the lower part of the digits in the year, 1985, but it can also be seen on the lettering along the rim. It's also important to note that while the 1985 double-die penny is the most famous error coin from this year, it's not the only one. There are also 1985 pennies that have other types of minting errors, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, and repunched mint marks. However, the 1985 double-die penny is by far the most valuable, thanks to its pronounced error and its rarity. So, if you're ever going through a jar of old pennies or rummaging through change at the store, keep an eye out for the 1985 double-die penny. If you find one in excellent condition, you could be holding a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. Who knows? That small piece of copper and zinc might just be the rarest and most valuable penny in your collection. As we wrap up this story of the 1985 penny, it's incredible to think that something as seemingly insignificant as a penny, a coin that many people overlook in their everyday lives, can hold such historical significance and such impressive value. The 1985 double-die penny is more than just a coin, it's a rare and valuable treasure that has captivated the attention of coin collectors and investors alike. And the next time you're handling loose change, remember this: sometimes the most extraordinary treasures come in the smallest packages. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of rare coins. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And remember, always keep an eye out for those pennies, they could be worth a lot more than you think. The top 5. When you think about a penny, the first word that likely comes to mind is insignificant. It's small, it's low in value, and for most people, it's just pocket change. But what if I told you that one of these humble pennies, minted in 1986, could be worth far more than you would expect? Imagine holding a coin worth $98,000. Yes, a single penny, something that is often overlooked in everyday life, could be worth that much, and today, we're going to uncover why. So, before you dismiss that penny sitting in your pocket, let's go on a journey and dive deep into the history, design, and rare errors that make the 1986 US 1-cent penny such a valuable coin. Trust me, this penny has a story that might surprise you. To truly understand why the 1986 penny is so valuable today, we need to step back in time to the mid-1980s. The year is 1986, Ronald Reagan is president, and the United States is enjoying a period of economic stability following the early 1980s recession. The country is in the midst of an era where the economy is growing steadily, technology is advancing, and the world is seeing the rise of new global markets. In the United States, the government is busy managing its monetary policies, and the U.S. Mint is working on coinage to keep up with demand. The penny, one of the most iconic and enduring coins in American history, was also undergoing a significant transformation during this time. While the design of the penny had remained relatively unchanged for much of the 20th century, the economic pressures of the 1970s and 1980s were beginning to force the U.S. Mint to make adjustments to its coinage. In particular, the penny was becoming increasingly expensive to produce due to the rising price of copper. In 1982, the Mint made a pivotal decision to change the composition of the penny. Prior to this, the penny had been made entirely of copper, but with copper prices soaring, it was no longer cost-effective to produce pennies out of pure copper. The solution? The penny would be changed to a composition of 97.5% zinc, with only a thin layer of copper plating on the outside. This change was implemented in 1982, but the effects were still being felt in 1986, as the Mint continued to work with this new composition, but beyond the composition, the penny's design remained relatively unchanged. The obverse, or front, of the coin continued to feature the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner. This image, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, had become a symbol of the U.S. penny and of the country itself. The reverse of the coin, however, was something that had gone through a more dramatic transformation in the mid-20th century. Since 1959, the reverse had featured the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, which paid tribute to the monumental building in Washington, D.C., dedicated to Lincoln's legacy. This design had been the standard for decades, but as we reached the mid-1980s, it was becoming more evident that the penny, along with many other U.S. coins, was nearing a point of potential change. The year 1986 itself didn't bring about any drastic changes to the penny's design, but it's still important to understand the broader context of U.S. coinage during this period. Economic factors, production challenges, and the gradual shift toward a more modern design language were all influencing the direction of the U.S. Mint. Now, while the 1986 penny itself didn't have any radical design shifts, this is where things get interesting. As with most years of coin production, mistakes happen. Sometimes, these mistakes result in error coins, rare and highly valuable pieces that become prized by collectors. And in the case of the 1986 penny, one such error coin stands out from the rest. The 1986 doubled die penny. A doubled die error occurs when a coin is struck by a die that has a misalignment or an error in its engraving, causing the design to appear twice, or doubled, on the coin. These errors happen during the minting process when the die used to strike the coin becomes misaligned or is struck more than once. The result is that parts of the coin, such as the date, lettering, or other design elements, will appear more than once, creating a distinct and recognizable double image. The 1986 double die penny is an example of one such error. While it was a relatively rare occurrence, this error led to a series of pennies from 1986 being struck with a clearly doubled image of the date and, in some cases, even the lettering around Abraham Lincoln's portrait. To the trained eye, these doubled images are easy to spot and make the 1986 double die penny one of the most sought-after error coins among collectors. What makes this error even more valuable is its rarity. As with most error coins, the more rare and unusual the mistake, the more valuable the coin becomes. In fact, error coins like the 1986 double die penny are often considered more desirable than regular coins from the same year, simply because they are so much harder to find. The 1986 double die penny has become a coveted item for collectors due to the fact that it represents a rare moment in the minting process, a piece of history that cannot be replicated. But let's talk about what makes the 1986 double die penny so appealing in terms of value. While most pennies from 1986 are worth just 1 cent, a well-preserved 1986 double die penny can fetch a significant price. And here's where things get really interesting. The value of a 1986 double die penny can range anywhere from a few $100s to a staggering $98,000, depending on its condition and the degree of doubling. You might be wondering, why such a wide range in value? The answer lies in the coin's grade. The condition of a coin is incredibly important in determining its value. Coins that are in mint state, meaning they have little to no wear and still have sharp, clear details, are much more valuable than coins that have been heavily circulated and show signs of age. A 1986 double-die penny in excellent condition, one that has been kept in a protective case and has minimal signs of wear, could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. On the other hand, a penny that has been worn down by years of circulation might only be worth a few $100s. Despite the double-die era, the 1986 double-die penny's value has also been driven up by the fact that it is a part of a growing collector's market for rare U.S. coins. As interest in coin collecting continues to rise, particularly in the realm of error coins, prices for these rare items continue to increase. For collectors, owning an error coin like the 1986 double-die penny is not just about owning a piece of currency, it's about owning a piece of history, a tangible reminder of the mistakes and quirks that make numismatics so fascinating. Now, if you're wondering how to spot a 1986 double-die penny, it's relatively straightforward. The most obvious feature to look for is the doubling in the date. The numbers in the year 1986 will appear to be shifted, with one set of numbers clearly visible and a second, faint set of numbers appearing slightly to the side. Additionally, the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," might also show signs of doubling, depending on the severity of the error. To accurately identify a double-die penny, it's also a good idea to weigh it. Regular pennies from 1986 weigh 2.5 grams, and a penny that weighs significantly more or less could indicate that it's an error coin or a rare variant. Additionally, examining the coin under a magnifying glass or using a microscope can help you spot the doubled features more clearly, especially in the date and lettering. Finding a 1986 double-die penny in circulation is a rare event, but it's not impossible. If you're going through your pocket change or checking old coin collections, it's worth taking the time to look for this unique and valuable error. Given its value, many collectors actively seek out this particular coin, and it's not uncommon for people to spend years searching for a mint-condition example. But if you don't happen to have a 1986 double-die penny in your collection, don't be discouraged. You can still find this coin through auctions, specialized coin dealers, and online marketplaces. Just be sure to do your research before purchasing, as the value of rare error coins is often inflated by unscrupulous sellers who may try to pass off regular pennies as rare ones. So, to recap, the 1986 US penny is far more than just a simple coin. It's a rare and valuable treasure, especially if you're lucky enough to find a double-die example. With its rich history, its iconic design, and the extraordinary error that makes it so unique, the 1986 double-die penny has earned its place in the world of rare and valuable coins. If you have one of these pennies in your collection, hold on to it tight because you might just be sitting on a small fortune worth $98,000 or more. Thank you for watching, and remember, not all pennies are created equal. Some have a story to tell, and some can even make you a very rich collector. Stay curious, keep searching, and you never know what treasures you might find.